This may surprise some people, being that they forgot it existed, but my favorite anime of all time is The Devil is a Part-Timer.
Yes.
And it's a capitalist wet dream. And yes, I've seen more than one anime. This is under my pride category, as in no shame. This anime earned its spot? This anime earned its spot in my favorites list by being around for me in a time where I was a little bit lost and working a part-time job. Just, no direction in my life. I found Mao and his desire for world domination very comforting, being that he starts his bit for world domination from a burger joint, which is the main joke in the show. A supreme being is working at a burger joint, which that joke has been done in other places too, to similar effect. But in this way, it kind of emphasizes the place of capitalism in how we think about it. And because it takes place in Japan, the way they think about capitalism and their places in the world. Satan, like the Satan, is the part of a demon army and the leader of a demon capital in another world and is sucked into this one. So he and a few minions try to find their place in this world by working their way up from a part-time burger flipping job, which only he gets, so he uses his income to support other people. And he's able to do this while working at McDonald's? It's just McDonald's. Japanese McDonald's. But it shows him accomplishing this solely by working very hard. Not solely, but the feeling that it wants you to get is that he's just working very hard, and that is how he gets ahead. He is the ideal employee, courteous to customers, does what he's told, is very enthusiastic, shows up early, takes whatever hours he can. It's like the childlike appeal of Mario, where the bad guys look bad and you can stomp them and you do it all for a tiny reward of cake at the end, and that's enough, because Mario's just a happy kind of guy. And Mao is just a worky kind of guy. It's a promise, enthusiastic dream that if we work hard, we can just succeed and find success and support the people we love and have a happy life. It takes capitalism at face value and says, this is what it is meant to be. This is the dream. Working at this burger joint is a step in conquering the world. Not only is working at a burger joint a step to conquering the world, but also the woman that once tried to stop you and murder you because of racism and politics can start to like you despite being your opposite, because you'll bond through your similar struggles and PTSD, and also Japanese racism. The show has a kind of manic energy that Mao Zedong really proclaims in his own excitement. His enthusiasm, where every problem he might complain about, but he will size up and then take on with all of his might and do everything he can to conquer it. Every obstacle is shown as something that you can get over with enough effort. It's wonderful. It's the dream. It's what I'd like to think about things. Now, because this is a TV show and it has arcs, that usually means some kind of character development. But this isn't like a personal character development, because sometimes Mao will learn things, but he won't grow stronger or change his attitude or really it's not character development in that we see him making mistakes. It's character development in that he might learn a thing or he might kind of come up with a different tactic, but his character is the same throughout and is merely tested by the challenges of the show. Now, sometimes this means him being clever, but sometimes it means him hulking out and using his demonic powers to change the world. Just like his powers that run off evil. It's part of the joke. It's evil. And he even kind of gets the girl, but not completely, but it's teased that he will get the girl. You can tell he's going to get the girl, even though it's opposites attract. And opposites attract is one of the pet peeves of mine, which you think would make the romance unbelievable. But the shared PTSD and general xenophobia of Japan kind of makes it very believable in how they interact with one another, even though most of that interaction is fighting. It's believable, caring fighting, and you start to think that maybe they do want what's best for each other. And that's the idea of like opposites attract, right? And tsundere and all that junk. Though, it really sells it with the like PTSD aspect when one of them, whenever there's a loud noise, or when one of them mentions Inte Isla, or when one of them like tries to fight something and then there's a flashback of a terrible tragedy of a village burning and it comes back to the person staring off into space. Like, you feel that. I smile, but it's terrible. Like, in an emotional level. Some of the things that bother me about this show are the things that bother me with anime overall, such as the unquestioning acceptance of the way things are, or working as hard as you can to succeed and not blaming anyone else for it, or the system. You know, I hate the Djangoism of thinking Japan is number one, and a lot of the out-of-world places just being inserting Japanese culture to another place and how wonderful it makes it. Like, oh, Japanese food. Oh, this sushi's delicious. Sushi is delicious, though. Like, the end of the Pacific Island Pokemon game. Like, cringe. There's some real cringe that you guys should feel. They learn it in their math classes, where their children are giving math problems they do not know how to solve. Like, purposely giving them harder math so that, you know, they learn work ethic of staying at something and working at it, not, like, questioning if it's wrong that you have this test. It's just what they're expected to do, and, like, how they learn. And it seems very questionable to me that torturing children for an hour is the best way to teach them work ethic. You know, just trying to teach them that it's better to struggle than succeed. And that's life. That's great. Thanks. Wait, why is this my favorite anime again? I mean, it is a pretty good fantasy. That struggling will mean success. That struggling is okay. I mean, it is okay to struggle, right? So it is okay to work hard at something and not feel like you have to succeed right away in order to keep going. What's the view count on this video? Comment down what the view count of this video is and when I have success. There are a lot of positives to having good work ethic and being able to settle through struggle of things and being able to handle that kind of stress. But at the same time, there's a lot of reality shifting blame going on here. But this is some hardcore abuse that Japan dishes out. And then there's stuff like whistleblowers getting shafted after corruption is shown, how corruption in the government shafts workers and makes it so that businesses don't have to follow safety precautions, or can have slaves, or can have weird scams where it's perfectly legal to send people a bunch of beds and stuff for an exorbitant price and not allow them to do returns. Workers are hardcore exploited because of this. It's like they train them to be used and abused. This is just life in Japan. This is just life in capitalism. It's just what you get. Can't be helped. Ganbatte. I know, they aren't wrong. This is technically life, but things could be improved. But the devil is a part-timer, isn't interested in that. Mal wants to conquer the world, but there's no, like, purpose in it. There's no goal or things that he wants to change in the world. He likes working his way up the system. He learns ways of using the system and advantages that are available to him, but he never wants to change things. He never gets a burning desire to really make things better, just work harder for himself. It's very much so like the Book of Job or Happy-Go-Lucky, where he's trialed in order to become the king of capitalism at the end. There's an assumption that the system is perfect and that's just the way the world should be. There is this assumption that merit will be everything and everything that is gained is because of merit and everyone that has something is because of merit. There are cynical people in the show who are shown scoffing or being lazy or laughing at Mao for his silly little job, but then they always gape in amazement when he succeeds. They never get good arguments for making things better, just like, oh, give me stuff. They're displayed as lazy people that just want things given to them. Or they look around at their empty lives, and even though they might have a higher paying job, they are lonely and envy some part of Mao's life, or Mao's attention, or affection. I'm talking about Emmy. Emmy was the other cynical character. And that's the comfort, that the people that laugh at you for toiling so hard are wrong, or are lonely in some way, and that you are right and will succeed. It's comforting. And it was comforting for me, and I still feel that little tinge of comfort in my work ethic and how hard I do things in order to go forward. But at the same time, I'm reminded that the system can change though, and I keep that in mind as I go forward, even as I am still very much so stuck in the system, participating every line of the way. I can do it with a cynical attitude and still work hard and enthusiastically. Liars. The people that made the show are liars. This is the fantasy of capitalism, that the workers will seek ever higher wages and one day maybe even have enough extra capital to start their own business, to start being on the road of them becoming a wealthy capitalist. I can totally see it fitting in if in a couple of novels there's Mao and Emmy writing up a business plan and applying for a loan so they can open Satan Burger and take over the world through their own fast food chain. Perhaps their business is more merit-based and more pure than the other ones, and instead of taking an easy out where they'd make their business more predatory and feed on people who are vulnerable, they'll say, no, we'll do it this way, and then they accept a smaller loan with maybe a higher interest rate, but are able to still get the money and prove that they were right all along, because capitalism is very similar to the scene where they apply for apartments, or where their debt is taken care of and things are able to be returned. Systems that be like, oh, the business may prefer this kind of action, but you can go through it purely and be good capitalists. The system is there for you in certain ways. Oh, Japan, thank you for your laws. But in the show's defense, there are certain realities that they don't shy away from. Not every law is in support of them. In the earlier bits of the show, they display everyone sharing a cup of ramen because that's all of the food they can afford in their budget. And the majority of their food is bought in convenience stores at first because food altogether is too much to buy ingredients that would provide for multiple meals. So little single shared cups of ramen are what they go off of, and that and the food from McDonald's, which might make someone a little chubby. I like how Mao always knows how much things are and compares it to the extra bit they have in the budget and how much they have for savings, and that is a constant goal. I assume it makes sense than Two Broke Girls method, but whatever. I really like how Mao ends up getting a support structure, but always has first his friend, but then is able to expand that to other people. And I like how, by coincidence, perhaps of the show, perhaps unknowingly, that most of the people in that support structure are themselves foreigners in the clique. You know, thanks, xenophobic Japan. I like how it shows credit card debt and how it can get out of hand. And I like how it does show like the realities of the problems of defining a budget on a minimum wage job, especially when you have dependents, which Mao gets. You know, eventually. He does get a couple raises in the show, and each one is like a tiny little triumph of capitalism, like, ha-ha, I've worked so hard. I really like how Mao has to work as many shifts as possible and takes extra stuff on, and how everyone's like, oh, how can you do all this? But at the same time, you kind of see how it takes a toll on his home life, and how he's missing things, and how, like, home does get neglected, and the people there are kind of affected by it. But they don't dwell on that for too long, because this is a happy show. But because like many of the challenges of the show, they're just shown as challenges to get over in like normal life, and not flaws in the overall system that we have, and Japan has. Almost as a way to apologize for this reality, there's a number of lucky breaks that Mao gets that in real life people can make up for by getting an allowance from their parents, by living with their parents, by having roommates, by latching onto people with better jobs and being roommated with them. I'm aware of what I had to... Like, at one point, they do run close to running out of money for food. Luckily, the neighbor has plenty of food and share. They need a place to live, but luckily there's a landlord that will let them live there for cheaper than normal. Their miner has racked up a lot of credit card debt. Luckily, there's a law that things bought by miners must be returned, and they discovered it within the right time frame. But then there are other flaws that depend on Mao's demonic magic to overcome them, which most of the time the magic is used to fight the otherworldly power, which seems right. But there's a couple of rare questioning times where the flaws in capitalism must be overcome with devil powers. So stores and restaurants keep track of the number of transactions they have. They know how busy they are all the time. Some stores actually literally count everyone that walks in the door and sees how many of them actually buy stuff. If you're familiar with being an individual person, you'll know that stores have no control over you, or limited control through advertising, that kind of thing. But you don't feel like you owe your money to every individual store just for walking in. Stores don't control what you want to buy or not. Right? Right. But still, because of budgets and numbers and regular customers, stores feel entitled to a certain percentage of the capital had by the public, and this is passed down the corporate structure. For example, I've known a couple salesmen where if someone didn't buy all of the extra stuff that they're supposed to sell and supposed to pitch, then they will swear about them and hate them and just, people are so dumb. They feel entitled to those sales because the person came in and aren't like, well, not everyone wants what we have, or not everyone feels like this is a good value. But this is the kind of personal responsibility that middle management study and look at statistics and try to pass on to the lower level part-time employees. So in the show, it's Christmas, which is a big deal for a lot of stores and restaurants. And there just so happens to be a brand new restaurant across the street. And Mao's store is not busy at all. So they do everything they can to try to attract in customers. They clean the store, they focus super hard on customer service, they decorate the store, they put on an impromptu sale, they decorate signs and go out and greet people passing by and invite them to come into their store. Come in, customer. But the store is irrationally not busy. It's like the world is not a wish-granting factory. But across the street, people are lining up. It is crazy. It is like magic. The number of people that just go to the store because it's new and it's the holidays and are willing to line up. You may think, and the show kind of thinks, that it's because of magic, maybe. But I've seen this in real life. Whenever there's a new restaurant, there's a lot of people that line up for it. They're really hyped up about garbage. It doesn't go for every business, but if it's a business that gets in the news a lot and they open a new location, they just line up. Like Chick-fil-A is really good at, being at the center of controversy and standing up for certain people's values. And then when a new store opens, they line up because it's a little bit different kind of still junk fast food. So I noticed this in our south side of town Chick-fil-A. It opened its own independent location, and it was busy for weeks. But despite the fact that it was actually replacing a location that was torn down when the mall was torn down, it had to close, and this Chick-fil-A replaced that location. And despite the fact that it was not our first Chick-fil-A, and we actually had one on the other side of town, it was busy for weeks. And the workers in there were all new. Not only new, but also forced to be courteous and kind and work hard hours and perhaps without breaks. This is what fast food and part-time jobs do. It's called churn and burn. They work people as hard as possible and try to get them to quit, and then they'll just hire more cheap people. It's something that they depend on a high possibility of unemployed people and a pool of people that want another job in order to do. And it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a large unemployed population. The best part of quitting within a couple weeks is the company doesn't have to pay for any kind of unemployment. That's not only low-level employees that can get hired and fired and trained fairly quickly to hand out warmed up chips. And that's not only low-level employees that need to talk to customers, hit pictures on a register, and hand out predetermined chicken recipes, typically the same all day, but Managers. They went through at least 5 managers in the first couple of weeks just because they were worked so hard and did not like it and had to be replaced. That surprised even me, that they went through so many managers, and managers were even vulnerable to churn and burn. I might be going out on a limb here, but I'm going to guess that every level of employee in a corporation is also exposed to this. Even if someone wants to go out on their yacht because they're a statewide or general divisions manager in the store, maybe even though they're on vacation, they're still supposed to go through paperwork every day and push that stuff through. It might be that the whole mentality of the store is constantly on this grind of you need to struggle to get harder, and actually never lets their employees feel a sense of accomplishment because failure drives higher numbers, they think, in reality, or is a cheaper way to drive higher numbers without actual investment of sales or making your work more valuable or training your employees better. It's better just to stress out their lives and make them think that it's all their fault. And this is the situation that Mao and his store find themselves in at Christmas, with the new Chick-fil-A across the street selling chicken. I think it is a chicken too. That's quite the... And Mao's store feels like they might be closed. There's like a rumor from the employee. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but they are reviewing our numbers. And stores and restaurants close for a number of, possibilities. Not just that they cut employee funding down so everyone along the line makes less money and the work is less good in quality and more people don't go because of the falling quality. It could just be that the building's rent is too high and it could be cheaper somewhere else. It could be that simply closing down one location and opening in another will drive people to go to it because it is new in that spot. It could be that all the employees there are too old, and if they hire a new place, they will have only new employees that they'll be able to pay them less. It could be that the employees tried to unionize, and so they closed. It could be that they assume that even though this store is closing, most of its sales will probably go to a store in a close enough location. It could just be that the investors are more confident when they know that stores are closing because that means that more better stores are there and we're weeding out the wheat. Some executive on some level might get a bonus for cutting off bad stores or cutting off that much expenditure, even though it gets rid of some revenue. For reasons you can ascertain or not, Mao's franchise is threatened in this time. And it is left to question whether or not, their signs and Christmas decorations brought people in, or whether or not it was Mao's demonic powers that did it. It's probably Mao's demonic powers. Because even though all these other factors are there of people being independent and doing what they want to do, and also the allure of a new store, the blame for a store or restaurant not getting sales is laid on the employees at the lowest level, and they are the ones that most often pay for it. And they're made to feel that blame. So Mao reaches out with his magic and makes the store popular. And by the way, he is not fully compensating for using devil magic to make his store or restaurant successful or have business. After all, what is the final goal of having a store? Just getting more money next pay period? Getting more money in the next season? Getting more customers? Your goal is always to grow, and you always want to open more stores, and they always want to get more money than before. But there's no point of stability, and this is a flaw with capitalism. No matter how popular McDonald's gets in one Christmas season, it's not gonna coast. It's not gonna be able to just live off that money and this is our employees and we're still gonna pay them and everyone's fine. We did that one really good Christmas season, so we're good for a while. That never happens. And Mao is not paid the full worth of his effort or magical abilities. 1, because he keeps it secret, and 2, because if you paid someone what they're worth, that would be technically losing money. It's better for businesses to pay people specifically what they're not worth and pay them as low as possible. And that is the joke in Devil's a Part-Timer, that there's this ultimate being and he is toiling for McDonald's. But I think it's a joke that anyone works for part-time or for minimum wage. That anyone works in a business where they don't have a say in the sales or the customers. They have no idea what the business decisions are or the rationale behind them or what happens with the profits. They have no say in what locations close or open or who gets hired. Who are your coworkers? What do you sell? Does it really mean something to the community? Does it have a big part in the community that's more than once in a while they give some money to something? Does your location mean more than a cookie cutter thing to, one, the people running it, and two, the people shopping there? It's not the message that the show sent out, but it's the message that I take from it now. That's a joke that any of us take our life-altering, our art creation, our family making and enjoyment time and spend it in these places. It's as much of a joke if we do it as if God or Satan themselves were working at a fast food joint. We do it because we have to, because that's the system. It's work or starve. No matter what people say welfare queens do, they work or they starve or they don't eat very well. It's a joke that people look down on workers that are stuck in this location, that are stuck working 2 or 3 jobs, or they think that's the way things should be, that you have to have more than one job in order to make your life work and in order to make your dependents livable. Even levels of workers that get paid more than other workers look down on each other, even though they're all being taken advantage of. Every level. Executives, big executives, little executives, managers, common employees, salespeople, construction workers. Every level of them is being taken advantage of. Because by definition, if any of them were paid their worth, then the capitalists would be losing money. Wait, why is this my favorite anime again? You're just licking yourself. Can you see that? I don't think you can.